hair up, hair down, boots, heels, flats, and then there's the makeup, goes through the makeup colors, and this goes on and on and on and on. It gets to the last one. She's calling up us and says, I've already used up all my decision making today. I can't come in. Now, you can take any number of things from that. What I took from that is we all do that, and somehow this cartoon has captured the magnitude, the number. I mean, you go to fast food. It's not fast anymore because of all the choices you have to make to order it. So think about this. If you were to change the way someone makes a decision, if you were to help with the geo, help them upgrade their decision strategy, to become clearer about what they want, to help them develop more effective operations, strategies, think how many times a day that would affect their life. Everyone has a couple of strategies they use, and usually one of them doesn't work. Motivation being a really good example. By the way, these strategies, they're running all the time. The thing is that people only notice them or tend to notice them when they don't work. If you have a motivation strategy that glues you to the outside of the chocolate shop, you're thinking, maybe I should have a procrastination strategy, The thing is, you ran your motivation strategy, and the answer was yes. On the other hand, when people are wanting to exercise or they're wanting to make a life change, then they're going, but there's another place in your life where you do get that change. It may be picking up the laundry. It may not. It may be cleaning up the dishes. It may not. It may be organizing your CDs or DVDs. The point is, in some part of your life, again, this idea that we're so many different people and so many different possibilities, in some part of your life, you know how to do something that there's really no immediate reward for it. I mean, organize your DVDs, your CDs, organize your clothes in the closet, take out the trash. Something like that where there's no intrinsic reward. The reward comes from having it later that way. That's one of the keys to a motivation strategy. It's not about now, it's about later. It's when you go back to the closet, there's the clothes. You can pick out anything you want to wear. Or you go to get the DVD, the CD, it's right there in order. Or it's when you go into the kitchen, it's clean, so you can do the next thing you want to do there. Or it might be your workshop where that happens. You've got a place where you have a motivation strategy that you do things that there's really they're just routine, there's no intrinsic reward, but you get a reward for having it ready for next time. You remember the geo, right? So you could take that very effective strategy and take your ineffective strategy and compare them. You could go, what do I do when I organize my CDs, my DVDs, my closet? What do I pay attention to and what are my steps? Compare that against the area where you're not doing the motivation. And what do we do then? Make it more like the one that works. How could you do that? New behavior generator. Only this time now, instead of it being a remedial change, that is a change that's just about your experience of organizing the closet or your experience of taking out the trash or doing the taxes, it becomes an upgrade in your motivation strategy. It works there, you move it somewhere else. You might need to actually practice in a couple of contexts. That's an extra 5 minutes, right? See yourself doing it the way it works for that situation, because it works over in this one. Do that movie till it works the way you like it. Bring it over, try it on, live it through on the inside, new behavior generator. Suddenly you've taken something that could have been learning a behavior, and you're talking about generalizing a strategy. We're talking about generative change here. How you can take this stuff and use it to create not just one change, but multitudes of change that begin to take a life of their own and roll forward in your experience. Does that make sense? So, what I'd like to have us do, and not for very long, maybe just 10 minutes total, is just to get in a group with who's ever right around you and strategize about what are these changes and how could you make these changes generative instead of remedial. I've given you some examples. So generate some more. We also have some very able coaches, who I invite to toss in a possibility now and again. But it's to get you wondering about how to think about this so that you begin to think, I'm going to make more change than this person even knows how to ask for, even if that person is me. All right? Let's go to it. Just 10 minutes. Strategizing. Generative change. Connecting a new skill to a new belief. You are good at learning. Future pacing to several different futures. New behavior generator creating a better strategy. Adding extra qualities to a swish. What else did you find? What did you come up with? Yeah.
Well, like we even did like meaning reframe and context reframe, and like for meaning reframe, you could maybe say, okay, reframe this one thing for them and say, next time you feel really stuck about something, or you don't feel comfortable, or you feel someone said something that was nasty to you, just for a game, maybe you can come up with 5 other interpretations of maybe what they meant, or maybe some other interpretations they have, and just do it as a game so they don't feel like they have to.
So in other words, create a situation where they've got enough distance that they can run a different strategy there, and then have them rehearse that strategy so that they begin, instead of it being, oh, I've got to respond, it's like, oh, what else could this mean? Yeah, that's a generative strategy, yes. Others, what did you find? What did you come up with? Yeah.
The example you were giving about teaching spelling, so if someone thinks they're stupid because they couldn't spell, so I wonder how many other things that,
Oh, very nice. So it's not only about the spelling and learning, it's like how many other things you could be really good at if you know how to do them.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you could even, go back to our list. Now, where's our list? You could even discuss with someone who has got a phobia for something that a phobia almost always is evidence of very fast learning. One trial learning. I mean, how many snakes did they need to see? How many dogs had to almost bite them? It's like one, boom, learned. You go, wow, you learn really fast. I'll bet you could learn how to change this really fast. And of course, as we know, that process is very fast. Then you could also leverage that process generatively and say, you've demonstrated to me twice that you're a really fast learner. I wonder what else you're going to discover yourself learning very quickly and thoroughly and effectively. Sends them on a search and they're going to come up with something. My suggestion here is there's a lot of ways to utilize this stuff and connect it a little bit as you're working with people that you can get more change for them, more delight in your work. Yeah?
I'm just wondering, in that example, since they learned the phobia quickly and they learned the change of the phobia quickly, would we want to say something to them to kind of make sure when we say, I wonder what else you're going to learn? That what other good, wonderful things?
Sure you can. You can.
Oh, start getting new phobias?
Yes. No, generally when people get over a phobia, they go, oh, that was really good. I think I'm going to stay over it. Yeah. But yes, you can certainly lean in the direction of saying, and I wonder what other places you'll find so applying this in positively learning or learning in a positive way or whatever you want to phrase it, this new possibility. Yeah. Now, having said this, there are certain techniques which have the quality of connecting more different aspects in terms of state and strategy, in terms of time. And these then, by their nature, are more generative techniques. I count the swish as a more generative technique because it takes the present moment where you're coming into a state you don't want to be in and connects that to an idealized future self who has the qualities that you want without telling you how you develop the skills. So your unconscious mind then begins to say, how can I close on this? And in the process begins to resort your experience and finds different things to connect that so that you become more and more that person. And as you know, having done the swish, in just a few seconds, it's reorganized.
I connected it to all other different situations.
All right. Connecting it to all other different kinds of situations. Some other people, just by the nature of their chunk size or how much they categorize and scope things, you'll find out more about this in the master track. For instance, smokers, that we do the smoking, it does work. Thing that sometimes happens is that they'll do the swish pattern for the after dinner smoke, but they won't do it for the bedroom smoke. And the person treated those in such different contexts that, well, you got to do it again, right? So it's a matter of being thorough. It's a matter of thinking, how can I connect this? And, as I say, there are patterns, like the swish, that are naturally generative. What I want to do now is to demonstrate and then offer you the opportunity to practice a technique that in itself is generative. It's generative for several reasons. It's generative because instead of just picking any moment in the past to change, a bad feeling, a less than resourceful feeling, you're going to go back to what we call an imprint experience. Now, what makes an imprint different than, say, a bad feeling is that an imprint generated some kind of belief. Now, what's a belief? It's a generalization. And so some experiences, for whatever their reasons, you generated a certain idea about the world or an idea about yourself. It could be that the world is a dangerous place. It could be that you generated the idea that, I'm somebody who really can't stand up for themselves. In other words, something that is a less than adequate representation of you. These imprints, of course, can happen very early on in life, and yet they can happen later on. Not, by the standards of NLP, and not very important, but I happen to think significant life kind of choice. Somebody who says, well, I'm not romantic. I'm not really the kind of person that knows how to treat the ladies or vice versa. So they go through life having mediocre relationships because what? Because in junior high school, they went to the dance, and it didn't go the way they wanted, and then they didn't go to another dance. And even though that wasn't an early imprint, it was still where a whole attitude, a generalization, a belief about the person, about their relation to the world was formed. Does that make sense? Now, we also form imprints that are really good. We form imprints like, when you're young, maybe it was, I can do anything. Maybe it was that I can figure things out, or where there's a will, there's a way. We form all kinds of these imprints. We're going to want to work with one where you feel it's a less than adequate representation of your possibility. Now, another thing about this that makes it generative is that this almost always involves other people. And if it's younger in life, usually bigger people. Now, these people, very often caretakers, our parents, they're not the same people now that they were back then. In fact, they probably weren't even the people back then that you think they were. They were the people that you think that they were back then. But here's the deal. Whenever you go in your brain and go back to that moment, that's the way they are. And in that sense, that's the resource set or unresourceful set that you get to draw on. So what if, instead of only changing your personal history and adding resources to it, what if you changed their resources at that moment or just before that moment, so that in your mind, they treated you differently at that time? How would that then affect things going forward, even though they are the parents that are here now, that are older than the parents there? We're not talking about the actual parents in the world. We're talking about the representations, right? So it's generative in that you're finding an imprint experience, you're finding these caretaking figures if they're there, or other people, and getting them to be resourceful, not the ones in the world, but the ones that you carry around all the time. So the next moment that you want to interact with the world, this is supporting you. And then the other thing we're doing is we're playing with time, because this past you is affecting this present you. And in these ways, we're creating a generative re-imprinting. Now, re-imprinting utilizes time. Now, we can do it in the traditional NLP fashion. We have somebody sit down in the chair. We gently anchor them and say, go back in the past to an early time. And maybe they follow a feeling. Maybe there's a particular difficulty, a familiar feeling, and have to follow it back. and back until they find the imprint. And